3 months ago, I quit my job as a 911 dispatcher after one call that changed everything. Since then, I haven't been able to sleep properly. I can't eat. I can't stop hearing her voice. I even made a copy of the call, which I listen to every night, hoping I can figure out what I should have done differently. I'm writing this because maybe it'll help me process it. Maybe putting it down will help me move on. Though deep down, I'm not sure I want to move on. Some part of me needs to remember. I had answered the call like I always did, asking what the emergency was. On the other end, a little girl's voice came through, barely a whisper. She said that something had hurt her mommy and daddy. She also said it was still in the house and that it was looking for her. My heart dropped. The worst calls were always the ones from children. I'd only had a few over my 8-year career, but those are the ones that never leave you. They claw their way into your soul and refuse to let go. One of my colleagues had to leave the job after a similar call. Now I understood why. There's something uniquely devastating about hearing fear in a child's voice, knowing you can't physically be there to help them. You have to sit and listen, keep them calm, keep yourself calm. You're the only thing between them and the dark. I told her gently that she had done the right thing by calling. I asked her if she was hiding somewhere safe. She responded that she was in the closet and didn't think it knew she was there. I told her that was very good and instructed her to stay there. I emphasized that she shouldn't make a sound no matter what she heard, and asked if she could do that for me. She quietly said that she could, then asked if someone was coming to get her. I started pulling the location linked to the number. The system took a few seconds to triangulate the signal, but it eventually popped up. I reassured her that the police were on their way and told her I would stay with hers until they got there. I asked if she could tell me her address, just to make sure. She answered that it was House 1840 on Hollow Grove and added that her daddy had shown her the number. Hollow Grove, quiet, upscale neighborhood, brick homes, big lots, rarely any incidents. It was the kind of place you didn't expect anything to happen in. The silence between those houses felt heavier now. It always does when you know someone is dying in one of them. I flagged an urgent response and alerted the nearest available unit. I asked her if her name was Alice, and when she said yes, I told her mine was Sarah. I told her that it was nice to meet her and that she was doing a really good job, that I was very proud of her. Then a loud thud echoed through the phone. Alice whimpered. She said that it hurt her mommy and daddy and made all the red come out. She added that it was walking around and looking for her. I fought to keep my voice steady. I told her she was doing amazing and to stay hidden. I said that the police were close and tried to distract her by asking if she wanted to tell me more about her birthday. I asked her what kind of cake she had. She said that she had turned 5 yesterday. Her mommy made a cake and they had a castle and dressed like princesses. Her daddy was the prince. She said it was really fun. Another thud. Her breathing sped up. I needed to keep her focused on anything but the sounds. I told her she must have looked beautiful and said I bet her dress sparkled. I asked if she got any presents she really liked. She said she got a big unicorn plushie. It was pink and sparkly and smelled like strawberries. I told her she was very brave and suggested we play a counting game. I told her to close her eyes and count to 100 in her head and that I'd count with her. She started 1, 2, 3. Then I heard scraping, nails on wood, very close, too close. My stomach twisted. I held my breath, listening. I couldn't do anything but talk. My words were the only thing between her and whatever was outside that door. I told her that the officers were 2 minutes away and that she was doing perfectly. I encouraged her to keep counting and reminded her I was right there with her. Then my screen lit up. Officers on scene. Relief flooded through me. I told her that they were right outside and it would only be a little longer. I heard distant shouting, then gunshots, then silence. I froze. My supervisor looked over, alarmed. I flagged the incident. Gunshots heard, officers down. I called out to her, asking if she was still there. Nothing. Then a shuffle. The phone picked up again. She said hi to me. I asked if she was okay and requested to speak to the officers, asking if they were with her. She replied that I couldn't. She said they were like mommy and daddy now. All red, that they weren't moving anymore. I stopped breathing. I asked her where she was right now. She giggled. She told me she wasn't in the closet anymore and explained that she wanted to say hi. She said that the officers screamed and tried to shoot her, which she thought was silly, so she made them stop moving. Then she added that she had a snack. Confused, I repeated the word. A snack? She said that her mommy had been feeding her, and she bit her by accident. She said that the red tasted good, so she kept going. She explained that her daddy tried to stop her and hit her, so she bit him too. She said she didn't stop until they both stopped moving. I pressed mute and vomited in my trash bin. My hands were shaking. My eyes were burning. This couldn't be happening. It had to be a joke, a delusion, a child having a breakdown. Anything but this. She asked if I was sick. I forced myself to respond that I wasn't and that I was fine. Then silence. She told me I sounded weird like Sally did when she ate Sally's cat. She said Sally didn't want to be friends after that. Then she asked if I was still her friend. I said that I was, always. She giggled again and said that made her happy. Then she said she thought she wanted a new mommy now, and that I could be her new mommy. She told me she liked me. Then she added that she was still hungry, and that after she ate, she would come find me. Then silence. I handed in my resignation the next morning. I didn't give a reason. I didn't need to. The look in my supervisor's eyes said she already knew. She didn't ask questions. She just nodded. And every night since, I replay the tape, just to hear her voice again. Even though I know what comes next. Most people think being a 911 dispatcher is just answering phones, taking calls, sending help. They think it's all about calm voices and sharp reflexes, that you clock in, wear a headset, save lives, and go home to sleep peacefully. They don't know the half of it. I became a dispatcher about a year ago. Just out of college, fresh, eager, restless. I wasn't aiming for heroism or community service. I just needed a job. The hours were long, but the pay was decent. It was meant to be temporary, something to keep me afloat until I figured out what I really wanted to do. 12-hour shifts quickly became routine. Nights blurred into days. Sometimes I worked 3 weekends in a row. Sometimes I handled over 40 calls a day. I thought I was getting used to it. I thought I was getting good at it. But the truth is, you never really get used to the sounds. The sobbing, the gunshots, the dead air after a child screams. The silence is often worse than the screaming. They stick with you. All those voices. I can still hear some of them in my head if I sit quietly enough, especially his. And yet I stayed. I didn't leave the job like I had planned. I didn't even try to leave. Why? Because of one particular call. One call changed everything. It was a humid Wednesday night, the kind that clings to your skin and fogs your thoughts. The air conditioning in the call center was on the fritz again, and the room felt like a giant, stale mouth. I remember leaning back in my chair, sipping cold coffee, wishing for something to break the monotony. Then the line lit up. Line 3, no caller ID. Just a flickering unknown. I pressed the button. 911, what's your emergency? For a moment, nothing. Then a sound filtered through the static. A low, distorted humming, like someone humming a lullaby underwater. It felt off, like the melody didn't belong in this world. It crawled into my ears and settled behind my eyes. Then a man's voice cut through, thin and trembling. He begged for help, over and over. The words came out like gasps between sobs. He didn't sound injured at first, just terrified. I asked him what had happened. He said he thought he'd been kidnapped. He told me he was in a basement. He couldn't see much. The windows were boarded up, and the only light came from a flickering bulb above. Said the air smelled like old blood and mold. Said he had managed to untie himself about an hour ago and found his cell phone, shattered in a corner. Somehow it still worked. He spoke in panicked, rambling sentences. Every few seconds he would whisper, "Please send someone. Please send someone." Like a prayer, like a man clinging to the last thread of hope. I kept my voice steady, Asked him for a location, anything identifiable. He said he had no idea where he was. The basement was sealed tight, and the last time he'd seen daylight was 2 days ago. I asked how he got taken. He said he'd been walking to his car after work, then nothing, just a blow to the head and darkness. Then he dropped a word that made my blood run cold. Others. He said there had been others before him, that when he woke up the first time, he wasn't alone. There were bodies, shackled, mutilated, rotting. I asked him what happened to them. They're dead, he said. He killed them, one by one. His voice cracked when he said it. I heard something in his tone that I don't often hear during emergency calls. Resignation. This wasn't just fear. It was a man already saying goodbye. He said the man who had taken him wore a full black outfit and a mask. Every time he entered the basement, he would hum the same creepy tune. That was the only sound the kidnapper ever made. No words, no yelling, just that damn tune. He said the man had broken his leg with a crowbar and cut off one of his fingers with a pair of rusted pliers. Not for information, not for ransom, for fun. The more he talked, the more frantic he became. He said the man would be home soon, that he always returned around the same time, and he didn't want to be caught with the phone. I told him I was tracking his signal, told him to stay calm, told him to keep talking. He begged me to hurry, said his phone was almost dead. Then the line went silent, just like that. I stared at the screen for a moment, frozen. Something in the call had set every alarm bell off in my head. My hands trembled as I typed. I logged everything, coordinates, radius, nearest tower pings. I dispatched a team immediately. There was a narrow search area, maybe 2 or 3 square blocks, but it was something. That night, I went home early. I needed to clean up. The next morning, I asked one of the officers if they found anything. He shook his head. Nothing. No one. Not even a sign of a struggle. No blood, no broken phone, no bodies, like it never happened. I nodded, said maybe the guy was delusional. Maybe it was a hoax, but I knew better. Because I knew exactly what happened. Because that man on the phone, he called me, and I was the one who had taken him. It still confuses me how he managed to get free. I had done everything right, bolted his shackles, fed him just enough, destroyed his phone. He wasn't supposed to move, let alone call for help. That wasn't part of the plan. I underestimated him. But he made one critical mistake. He didn't know who was on the other end of that call. He didn't know that his desperate plea for help was being answered by the very monster he was running from. I remember sitting there listening to him describe me, listening to the trembling horror in his voice as he talked about the humming, the mask, the bodies. I had to force myself to keep my voice calm, professional. Had to act like I gave a damn, and I did, just not for the reasons he thought. I took care of it later that night, quietly, efficiently. He didn't scream this time. Maybe he didn't have the strength, or maybe he had finally accepted that no one was coming to save him. That I had already answered his call. I buried what was left of him deep in the woods, far from the house. The others were nearby, their graves marked only by silence. Now the basement is clean again. Empty, ready, waiting. Some nights when I sit back in my chair with the headset on, I think about that call. Think about how close he came to screwing everything up. Think about how lucky I was. Because had he reached anyone else, anyone at all, it could have ended differently. But fate has a twisted sense of humor. His final hope was the very hand that sealed his fate. Most people think we save lives at this job. They're wrong. We decide who gets to live, who gets to be heard, and who gets silenced. And that's what I love about being a dispatcher. It's not the adrenaline, it's not the stories, it's not even the illusion of being a hero. It's the control, the absolute terrifying control. So I stayed, because I finally found a job where I don't have to hide who I am, and because sometimes the ones who cry for help are the ones who deserve to be punished. They called us for a sick old woman. We never expected to walk into a blood-soaked house, a dead man with no wounds, and the real patient still alive. So the story began. When I started working as an EMT, everything was new and intense. Every call felt like stepping into someone else's life, into moments of crisis that could turn tragic in seconds. But nothing prepared me for one of my very first calls, the one that still haunts me years later. It was a quiet evening, the kind of night when the city feels heavy and still, and the sky is an endless black canvas. We got a call about an elderly woman who wasn't feeling well. The address was in a neighborhood that looked peaceful enough from the outside. Small houses, well-kept lawns, a street where you expected friendly hellos instead of screams. When we arrived, the husband answered the door. He was sitting in a wheelchair and looked surprisingly calm. No signs of panic, no confusion. He was the kind of man who seemed quietly dignified, despite obvious physical challenges. He let us in without hesitation and started leading us through the modest house toward the bedroom, explaining in a low voice what was going on. His calmness was strange, almost unnatural, but at the time, I didn't think much of it. The air inside the house smelled faintly of mildew and old wood. The lighting was dim, filtered through heavy curtains, casting long shadows across the walls. It felt like a place frozen in time. Halfway across the kitchen, something happened that I'll never forget. The man stopped talking mid-sentence. His head suddenly slumped forward, like a puppet with its strings cut. My co-worker and I exchanged a quick, alarmed glance. Time slowed. We rushed to him, shaking his shoulders, calling his name. He was dead. His heart had just stopped. I can still hear the ringing silence that filled the room after that moment, louder than any siren. We jumped into action, starting CPR immediately. We worked on him for over an hour, compressions, breaths, defibrillation shocks, everything we had. Twice the paddles shocked his chest as we raced toward the hospital, but he didn't come back. The woman, the original patient, was still in the house. She had severe dementia. We didn't know exactly what was wrong with her, but the family said she'd been deteriorating for months. So while we were en route to the hospital, we requested another ambulance to go back and transport her. The house was empty when we returned later that night. The street was silent, the world outside shrouded in darkness and stillness. But the police had already arrived and were waiting for us. They wanted answers. They wanted to know what the hell had happened inside that house. We were confused too. The officers led us back inside. The floorboards creaked beneath our feet as we followed them to the bathroom. What we saw there defied all logic. Blood, not a little. Blood everywhere. The walls were splattered, dripping. The ceiling was coated in a thick red haze. Pools of blood collected in the corners and around the sink. It was like something out of a horror movie, or worse, an execution chamber. The smell was sickening, metallic and overpowering. I've seen a lot in my years on the job, but this was on another level. I tried to count the amount. 6 pints, 8, enough to fill a bucket and still have some left to soak the floorboards. And yet, neither the man nor the woman had any visible injuries. No wounds, no cuts, no external trauma. No signs anywhere on their bodies that could explain this nightmare scene. The police were just as baffled as we were. While we stood there trying to make sense of the bloodbath, we suddenly heard a quiet, eerie voice say, "Hello." I froze. My heart skipped a beat. Even the officers jumped. There, standing in the dark doorway, was a middle-aged woman. She didn't look scared. She didn't look shocked. She was calm. Almost too calm. The police immediately started questioning her. She said she was the daughter-in-law of the couple. She had come by earlier in the day to take care of them, but claimed she had stayed quiet, not making herself known during the chaos. Her serene demeanor unsettled me more than the blood on the walls. As she spoke, her eyes were cold, distant. It felt like she was hiding something far darker than what she was letting on. I was only 17 at the time, still green to the job, overwhelmed and trying to process the whole scene. But deep inside, a horrible thought took root. What if she was responsible? What if this wasn't just a tragic medical emergency, but something sinister? I suspected she might have been poisoning them slowly, maybe tampering with their food or medications. That could explain the sudden cardiac arrest of the husband and the woman's declining condition. And the blood? Maybe it came from violent vomiting caused by the poisoning. Maybe there was more to the story hidden behind those calm eyes and quiet words. To this day, no one has told me what really happened in that house. No one explained the blood. No one answered the questions that still burn in my mind. Was it murder? Was it accident? Or something far worse? I never told this story before. It felt too strange, too unbelievable, but it happened, and it still haunts me. And that's a wrap for today's video. I hope you enjoyed these chilling stories. If you did, don't forget to drop a comment with your favorite one, hit that like button, and subscribe for more spine-tingling tales coming your way. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.